On Tech News Today, new Apple patents hint at what we might see at next week's big iPhone announcement. Plus, Goodwill is hacked by credit card crooks, 4chan changes their policy on the removal of some photos, and Dyson unveils an amazing robot vacuum cleaner. All that and more coming up right now on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, September 4th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Citrix ShareFile. Enhance your workflow, send files of almost any size easily and securely with Citrix ShareFile. Try ShareFile today. For a 30-day free trial, go to sharefile.com, click the microphone, and enter TNT. And by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll finally have all your financial life in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who reported. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and with me is Jason Howell, who's buried, I tell you, under a pile of smartphone and tablet news.
It's madness. It's madness. I've already started the doc for next week's All About Android, and it's pretty much full at this point. I don't know how we make room for any other news.
It's just incredible. And and so just a little programming note here. There have been, since yesterday's show, there have been announcements from Microsoft, Lenovo, HTC, and Huawei. We're going to hear more from Motorola today or tomorrow. And we just don't have the bandwidth on this show to cover it, especially since we're going to be covering all these devices extensively on other shows like Windows Weekly, Twit, All About Android, and Before You Buy. So tune into those other shows to get, as we're going to be grappling with this news for the next, for the rest of the month. So we're not going to be covering these announcements on today's show, FYI. And also, it's Thursday, so that means our guest co-anchor is Elise Hugh. I'm sorry, I said guest co-anchor. You are a full-fledged co-anchor. Our Thursday co-anchor. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here. I have no gadgets on my desk. I have a packet of Hellman's mayo.
Review it. I want the review.
I don't even want to know. It just seems okay. Well, it's just a packet. It's Hellman's. All right.
It's portable.
That's right. And
it's handheld.
It's curved.
That's right.
If you wrap it around your wrist. So, Elise, earlier in the week, we covered the police body camera situation in Ferguson. And you wrote a really interesting piece about this, and I think you had an opinion about that basically points out that it's nice, but this is no solution.
Right. It's certainly going to be an improvement for Ferguson and the folks who distrust the police there because of their misconduct in the past to have them with cameras on and know that they know that they're being watched and that there might be accountability later. But of course, this is a control issue. Who gets to control the cameras in the end and start and stop them? And who gets to control the tape, the footage of it? And it's going to be the police department and the city. And so there's a lot of questions that come from it and a lot of disputes. So the recordings are good, but they're not neutral.
Yeah, it's just, we've all seen every single crime drama in the history of mankind where they have the suspect in the interrogation room and then the cop goes over and unplugs the camera and then does something unconstitutional and plugs it back in. If they can control when it's on or off, the whole thing is defeated. We need to make sure that they don't control that. And I also think that the other dimension of this, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think that police will get a lot of sympathy if people can see what they see when they're arresting some types of suspects. So we want to cut down on police brutality, on abuse, on racism, and all those things, but we also want to just sort of have an open record of what actually takes place so that when they go to court and in the court of public opinion, we sort of have better information than we've had around Ferguson. So.
That's right. The more information, the better in this case.
Absolutely. So look for that story at npr.org. Well, let's jump into the news because we have plenty of it. Just days before Apple's big iPhone 6 launch, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office today published 2 patents that can improve the user experience of using an iPhone. The first is a method for hardening sapphire screens, and the second is a way to bring augmented reality to phones. Now, the first thing about sapphire is really fascinating, and I don't know, Elise Hugh and Jason, I've been obsessed with the sapphire screen phenomenon simply because it's something that's kind of been in the background. There have been companies that have been making sapphire screens, but Apple's coming on so strong with this. They've used it for their fingerprint reader. They've used it for their camera lens covering glass, and that made sense. And now Apple is literally, by far, the largest sapphire manufacturer in the history of mankind with this gigantic factory. They're, as I understand it, they're manufacturing now far more sapphire than the rest of the world combined. And they're doing this in, what is it, New Mexico or something like that in the Southwest. And now they've got this patent for hardening sapphire beyond the normal hardness that normally exists. And that involves something that sort of embeds different types of ions into these sapphire crystals that make them super, super hard. The big question, and I guess I'll throw this to you, Jason, because you follow the Android market so well and the smartphone market in general. Is this really a selling point? Are people going to buy phones based on the hardness of the screen? I mean, it's not something at the point of sale that you can really even detect.
I think if the promise is, hey, you've broken your screen before, you've dropped it, and you had to drop another $600 to $700 on a replacement phone that you didn't expect to have to do, pay a little bit extra, and that won't happen. Yeah, I think people will buy that. I think, you know, does it reside in the same world as excellent battery life that you don't have to think about, you know, those kind of usability things? Maybe it's a little bit less than that because not everybody has cracked their screen. But if you have, this is actually probably very important to you. Yeah, would be my guess.
Absolutely. The second patent was around augmented reality, I should say. And these look to me like just ordinary methods for doing augmented reality, where you use this camera's video camera and you superimpose on that camera different types of information. This is one of those patents that kind of makes me go, you know, I hate the patent system, because Apple's really patenting here standard techniques for the most part that have been developed by other people, universities mostly, for years and years and years, and now they're jumping in and saying, well, we're going to patent this, we're going to patent that, we're going to patent the whole concept. And it's a little bit weird, but you know, I guess it's a patenter's market, Elise, Hugh. Do you really think that augmented reality is something that can sell phones?
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you guys, actually, and it was about the Amazon Fire Phone and how the promises of the Fire Phone and this augmented reality patent are similar or different. I mean, I feel like when the Fire Phone came out, there was a lot of talk about a different experience that may include some of this augmented reality type experience. Can you kind of compare and contrast that?
Well, the Amazon Fire Phone is really about recognizing things, and I think any sort of good augmented reality recognizes what the camera is looking at. So that's a start. Google's been working on that with Google Goggles for a long time, which is an app you can get for iOS devices and Android devices. And it recognizes not only products, so you know, you point it at something in the store and it says, well, here's the product. You can order it, in the case of the Fire Phone, on Amazon, which is the whole point of that feature. So that there's an element of augmented reality, but the point is not to augment reality, but to sell things through Amazon and also recognize things. You pointed at the Statue of David and said, oh, that's the Statue of David. It also correlates that with the fact that you're in Italy. Where's the Statue of David? Statue of David in Florence? Where is that? Anyway, wherever it is. And it sort of correlates that data and gives you some information about the world. And all of that is nice. But this seems to me to be sort of Apple's entry and way to compete with Google, because Google's got Google Glass and so on, in this sort of augmented reality space with some intellectual property. That's just the Apple way. They just patent every single thing they can possibly patent. That's just how they function. Well, anyway, it's interesting, and we'll see if either of these, if I had to predict, and I will, I would predict that this sapphire technology is going to be part of the announcement on Tuesday, but the augmented reality part of it probably will have nothing to do with that announcement. We're probably not going to hear about augmented reality at the Apple announcement next week. But this sapphire technology is just going to be a big showcase for this announcement. I'm very sure about that for a number of reasons that we'll get to later in the show. Well, in just a sec, we're going to tell you about yet another massive credit card hack. They just keep on coming. But first, I want to tell you about Citrix ShareFile. If you are still attaching personal photos, financial information, any sort of business documents, any sort of trade secrets to email and sending them out over the internet, you are not paying attention. You cannot do that anymore. It is no longer the 90s. And nowadays, it's so easy to hack things, and so many things get hacked. And you find out about these hacks, by the way, after it's too late to do anything about them. So you need to act before you get hacked by using ShareFile ShareFile.com, one of our sponsors today. ShareFile, instead of sending an attachment, lets you upload your file to a secure place, a very secure place in the cloud, and you send a secure link to the person. And you can do all kinds of things. It gives you control of the attachment of the file after you've sent it. For example, if you want to limit the download to a specific person only one person can download it. In fact, you can send the email to 30 people, but only allow one of them to download it, for example. If you want to only allow them to download it once or only 3 times, you can, whatever it is, you can limit the number of times it's downloaded. You can limit the time that it's downloaded. You got 3 days to download this thing, after which time it stops being downloadable. And you can also, this is my favorite feature, be notified when people download it. People waste so much time going back and forth. Did you see the file? No, I haven't looked at it yet. Okay, well, maybe we'll get back, and then you have to schedule it, and you have to, all this, forget about all that stuff. All you have to do is set the feature that notifies you when the file's been downloaded. You get an email back that says, hey, your file's been downloaded. Then you can contact the person and say, I see you downloaded the file. Let's talk about it. And nobody is wasting their time. I love Citrix ShareFile. It's not just for sensitive documents. It's also for ginormous documents. You can send files of 3 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes, 6 gigabytes, 8 gigabytes. Massive files you can send that would never get past a corporate firewall. You can send very easily with Citrix ShareFile. So sign up today, 30-day free trial. There's no obligation at all. Just go to sharefile.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and enter TNT. Look for the little microphone icon. Click on that and enter TNT. Sharefile.com and type in TNT. Well, Elise, it looks like another big hack happened, and it's of people of ill will, ironically.
That's, yeah, it appears no one is safe. My Goodwill announced Wednesday that nearly 900,000 payment cards and stores in 20 states were hit in the latest big credit card data breach. Fraudsters apparently installed malware in the point-of-sale systems that read card information, just as they did in the case of the big Target breach that happened during the holiday season last year. So joining us to talk about this and where we go from here with all these breaches is Penny Crosman, editor-in-chief of American Banker. Penny, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Well, first, let's talk through the scope of this particular breach and how Goodwill found out about it.
Well, the scope, as you said, is believed to affect stores in 19 states and the District of Columbia. It's basically anybody who shopped in a Goodwill store between February and August could be affected. So that could be, as you said, many hundreds of thousands of cards. And as you pointed out, this is the latest in a long chain of data breaches that has included Target, P.F. Chang's, Neiman Marcus, Sally's Beauty Supply. It's just sort of an ongoing drumbeat of breaches that we're seeing. And, basically a lot of our personally identifiable information has been stolen about a lot of Americans. I mean, in the Target breach, it was 110 million people. So I think virtually every American can feel like they're likely to have been victim to one of these breaches over the past year.
Now, Penny, it's incredible to me that these kinds of problems still happen to banks. And, of course, this story is about Goodwill, which is not a bank. But you cover the banking space, and it's really interesting. We've talked about it on this show before because in Europe and all over the world, banks get hacked. The banks don't want to talk about it because they don't want their customers freaking out and knowing about it. And so oftentimes they'll pay a ransom. There's a whole blackmail market in Europe for this kind of information. Now, I can understand how it can be impossible to prevent people from guessing passwords and getting to the personal accounts of this individual or that individual. But why can't the banking industry figure out how to prevent these mass leaks? It seems like something that's so important to them, to the industry, and it's something that's, I mean, it's absolutely necessary almost for their survival. Why haven't they been able to fix this ongoing problem?
That's a really great question. And it is a huge problem, as you noted, a huge reputational risk, financial risk for them. I think the problem is that hackers have gotten more and more sophisticated, and they are finding these little back doors to access these systems. They're not necessarily targeting the banks directly, but like in the case of Goodwill and Target, they found a third-party vendor that these companies were working with and were able to break in through a remote access tool that vendor was using. So basically guessing a password that was being used by a company that provided heating and air conditioning or some kind of service like that. And they managed to break in, and then they managed to navigate the network from there. Now, banks are doing a lot of things to try to prevent these breaches, as you can imagine. I mean, they're definitely stepping up their due diligence on the third-party companies they work with and making sure those third parties have all the proper security mechanisms in place, like, as we're seeing, the need for better authentication of users of these systems. Banks are certainly doing a lot of monitoring of transactions to look for anomalous activity that would indicate some kind of breach or security incident has happened. Banks are sharing information with each other more about incidents so that they can detect problems more quickly. Banks are starting to require two-factor authentication for many of their transactions. But again, it's hard for the banks to control what retailers do on their POS networks. It's really, to a large extent, it's up to companies like Target and Goodwill to defend their own networks and not let these hackers get in. The banks can pressure them to do better, but there's only so much actual control that they have. But as you noted, banks are definitely affected. And one number was like $170 million was spent by the banking industry in the wake of the Target breach to reissue cards and implement better security and whatnot.
Penny Crosman is the editor-in-chief of AmericanBanker.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Penny Crosman, Crosman spelled with one S. Thank you so much for joining us today, Penny Crosman.
Thank you, Mike.
After the celebrity photo theft scandal in which personal photos were posted on 4chan, the site has adopted a new policy for removing pictures. Tech reporter Lauren Orsini wrote about the news for ReadWrite and joins us now. Welcome, Lauren.
Hello.
So what is 4chan's new policy exactly?
Well, basically, sometime on Tuesday, we're not exactly sure when, they set up a new legal page. Really, you can go to it at 4chan.org/legal. And pretty much all it does is establish a DMCA agent. And what that is a designated agent that people can go to if they have complaints and they are copyright owners and they want to have their stuff taken down from 4chan. That way, 4chan's not responsible.
So why didn't they have this in place before?
Yeah, usually it would be insane for a site the size of 4chan to operate without safe harbor or a DMCA policy at all. However, 4chan is kind of in a unique situation in that its creator, Moot, designed it to automatically delete content after really a few hours, pretty much. Since most of the boards that make up 4chan, where the users communicate, are they only have 11 or 16 pages for content. That means that content's only available for a few hours or a few days, and then it just disappears forever.
So how do they get a takedown if the pictures are posted only for a few hours? Can that be done in that amount of time?
It's been possible because there have been takedowns for 760 URLs on 4chan, according to Google's transparency report. So what's interesting about that is think of all the things that are posted on 4chan each year, and there's only been 706 takedowns, and that's exactly because of the deletion policy.
Interesting. Now, of course, the other major site where people access these pictures that we're talking about, of course, we're talking about personal photos of more than 100 female celebrities, many of them nude pictures and involving sex and so on, very personal pictures in this giant hack. The other place where people were seeing them is on Reddit. In the case of Reddit, the pictures were posted on other sites and then accessed from Reddit. What's Reddit's policy on this? Are they doing anything differently to deal with the situation?
I actually don't know what Reddit's policy is right now. I'd imagine that they do have a DMCA agent, as most sites do.
Interesting.
The thing is, we don't actually know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead. You were making a point.
Sure. Yeah, we don't actually know where this nude photo leak actually began. Like, 4chan has been in the news a lot because it's rumored to have begun on 4chan, but it could have easily had begun somewhere else. What's interesting is that 4chan is the one in the spotlight here. more so than anything else.
Well, to me, it's interesting that it's 4chan and iCloud. The conventional wisdom on this thing is that somebody hacked iCloud, downloaded all these pictures, and posted them on 4chan. And we know that neither of those points are exactly true. It sounds the best information that I'm aware of is that that Find My Friends was used to brute force hack a lot of passwords for Apple, but that the pictures had been gathered by a number of people from multiple sources and not iCloud, but other Apple sources of information possibly were accessed. Some of these pictures are even apparently fake, and so the whole narrative around iCloud being hacked and then 4chan being the place where they were posted isn't exactly accurate. However, it is interesting that, and again, as I think you pointed out in your article, there's also no clear and direct reaction. This isn't necessarily a clear and direct reaction to that news. It could be coincidental, and it's not really clear to me that really copyright is the way that this is going to be dealt with. I mean, for example, if somebody steals a picture of somebody naked, that person's not going to say, I have no copyright to that. You know, I mean, that doesn't seem like the avenue that they're going to go through. But in any event, it is interesting, and we'll be looking at other sites making changes. We see, to me, I mean, let me just ask you this very quickly, Lauren. I see a big difference in this hack. Of course, leaked photos like this have been going on for years and years, but this one seems different. It seems like it's changing everything. It's changing the societal norms about viewing this material. It's changing 4chan's policy, possibly. Do you perceive that as well? Is this a fundamentally different sort of watershed event in sort of the history of the internet, if you will?
It definitely seems monumental. I think one thing that's interesting about it is how whoever this hacker or hackers are able to receive pseudonymous payments through Bitcoin. And I mean, that's how we know it was eventually put onto 4chan, is that whoever this person was requesting payments, and in response they were putting these things up. And it's showing other hackers yet another way to make money through exploiting people's privacy.
Lauren Orsini writes at readwrite.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at LaurenInSpace. You're not actually in space, right? It's Lauren in Space is your Twitter handle, but you're not actually in space.
No, it's a long story.
Okay. We'll have you on in the future, and you can tell us that story. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech News Today.
Thank you.
All right, well, Elise, we predicted that Dyson would announce a robotic vacuum cleaner. It looks like they've done it.
It has happened. I have the vacuum cleaner news today. Dyson is unveiling its first robotic vacuum cleaner called the Dyson 360i. And true to its innovative and experimental reputation, it has a 360-degree camera that essentially maps rooms so that it can better navigate the places that you're cleaning. So to tell us more about the Dyson 360i and what it means for the way we'll clean our homes is tech writer Sebastian Anthony of PC Mag and Extreme Tech. Sebastian, welcome.
Hi.
So Dyson, in its announcement, emphasized that navigation was essentially the key here. Tell us why it was really important to them to know rooms.
So, I mean, obviously it's their product, so they're going to hype up the fact that theirs has a fancy camera and the competition Roomba doesn't have a camera. In actual use, this probably won't be massively different from a Roomba, but it will just seem more high-tech. It has more buzzwords. It looks a lot prettier and more brushed aluminium-y than a Roomba. But yeah, it basically, if you imagine it has like a little Kinect on the top of it, and it's constantly scanning the room looking for obstacles like chairs or animals or humans, and it can then use that data to build like a 3D map. If you've ever seen any Kinect hacks or Project Tango, Google's smartphone, same kind of deal. And yeah, it just is it's a more intelligent, advanced way of navigating a room, but it's not necessarily, not necessarily any better than bouncing around like a Roomba, just a different and a more modern way, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Google Street View car in a sense, and just so people understand the difference, the Roomba sort of goes in a circle, and it bumps into something. So, oh, whoops, that's a wall. And then, oh, wow, that looks like a downstairs. And it sort of maps that there's an edge there, and it sort of turns around and continues. And eventually, in this sort of sloppy pattern, it ends up vacuuming the whole place, theoretically. Now, in this case, this is total overkill unless, and this is my personal theory, Dyson is moving toward a world in which this thing will do other things other than vacuum the rug. For example, if it can detect that there is a coffee table or something, maybe it can, in the a future version of this, will be able to reach up and dust the coffee table, or, you know, I don't know, pick things up and put it in the laundry, or, you know, who knows? Because if it knows that, if it knows where the objects are, and it can maybe even detect what those objects are, this could do a lot more than vacuum the rug. Or am I just making up something here that isn't likely to happen with this level of technology?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's probably still more important at this stage that they've got a very powerful motor into this robotic vacuum cleaner. They're saying that it will actually clean rather than move dust around, which has been an issue with some Roombas. But yes, I mean, this is definitely a very advanced bit of technology. It's going to be very expensive. There are rumors that it might cost $800 or more. A Roomba is $500 by comparison. But yeah, Dyson has shown that it, you know, isn't afraid of going into new markets. It could easily become some kind of intelligent. Maybe the vacuum cleaner itself will be your coffee table rather than, you know, dusting the coffee table. Yeah, I could see it doing some clever things in the future.
Sebastian Anthony is at extremetechandpcmag.com, and you can also find him at msseb.co.uk and on Twitter at Mr. Seb, MRSEB. Thank you so much for joining us, Sebastian.
Thanks.
All right. Well, Amazon announced a new Kindle Direct Publishing Kids program for authors to create and publish ebooks for children without the involvement of interlopers like book publishing companies, editors, or agents. Blair Hanley Frank is the Bay Area correspondent for GeekWire and joins us now. Welcome, Blair.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So glad you're here. Now, can you tell us more about Kindle Direct Publishing Kids? How would an author go about using it, and how would the kids get these books?
So it works a lot like Amazon's existing Kindle Direct Publishing program. An author builds a kid's book. In this case, they're using a new Kindle Kids book creator app to put together a book with images and text, and it can also use Amazon's pop-up feature to allow people to, you know, pop out text when it's tapped on. And then they put that all together. They submit it to Amazon. They add a suggested price and a suggested age range, and then after that, it shows up on the web, and people can download it and bring it onto their Kindle and share it with their kids. Obviously, the goal of this is for, you know, kids book authors who want to self-publish, who perhaps, you know, haven't been able to get interest from publishers or aren't interested in working with publishers, to take their books directly to consumers on Amazon's platform.
Blair, is this pretty new, or is there some sort of competition in this space already?
It's new to Amazon, and there are a number of sort of smaller ebook platforms that have offered picture book services in the past. I know some people have used Apple's iBooks Author to publish children's books to the iBook store. But all of the reading I've done about that has indicated that it's not a perfect solution for kids' books. And the big news here is that Amazon has an absolutely massive install base when it comes to the e-reader market. They're by far the leading player. And so this is a big pond that people are able to swim in now that they weren't able to swim in before.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the Kindle Kids Book Creator as a tool, as a piece of technology?
Yeah, it's a Java app, runs on both Mac and PC. And other than that, the way it works is you give it a cover image and you give it a bunch of background images and you add text. It's basically drag and drop. You know, you click add text, you drag a text field onto a picture, you type in what text you want to have in there, and you're good to go. It's fairly simple in my my brief testing of it. Mm-hmm. Something that would be easy enough for most authors to use. It definitely has a learning curve.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it is it also comes bundled with a preview app. So it's possible for people to sort of try something out and then take a look at it as it would be displayed to a customer on a Kindle, and then see if it does what they want. And if it doesn't, then they can go back and tweak it before they submit.
Blair Hanley Frank writes at geekwire.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at BELRIL. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, Elise, it looks like the United States of America got a new CTO.
That's right. Googler Megan Smith is the next U.S. Chief Technology Officer. This is only the third CTO in American history after the Obama administration created this position a few years ago. Megan Smith is a former engineer and entrepreneur, and she has been, up until now, of course, VP of Google X, the labs division that has headed up Project Loon and Project Wing, the drone delivery program that we've talked about here on the show.
When President Eisenhower was elected president, President Truman was quoted as saying, "Poor Ike. He's used to the military where you say do this and do that and people do it." And I think in her case, she's going to find that the public sector is very, very different than working at Google. Because at Google, people are entrepreneurial and they're flexible and they can do things, and she's going to be essentially drowned out in politics and inertia and bureaucracy. And I wish her well, and I wish her good luck. Not much more to say on that story, but it's interesting to see somebody moving from Silicon Valley to Washington, D.C. We may never hear from them again. Well, in just a sec, we're going to do a couple of follow-ups. But first, I want to tell you about Personal Capital. Personal Capital is going to help you with your finances in major, major ways. First of all, they're going to bring together all of your financial information from all those different sites that you've got it in and put it in one place so you can see it all together in intuitive graphs and charts. And the second way is they're going to save you money right away. You're already paying people to help you with your finances in all these different services, and Personal Capital will right away show you how to save money on these devices. One of my favorite features of Personal Capital is they've got an Android Wear app, which I use on my LG G Watch. And it's really great. If anything happens with your money that you need to know about, your wrist will buzz and you'll look down, you'll see that information. You can take action on it right away. It's very, very powerful. And, you know, do the math. You know, it's free. It's a free app, costs you nothing, and then it saves you money right away. So there's absolutely no reason for you to not use Personal Capital. It's just a fantastic service. So set up your free account. Go to personalcapital.com/TNT. And remember that Personal Capital is free, and it is the smart way to grow your money. And we thank Personal Capital for their support of Tech News Today. Well, we got an email. We got a voicemail from Jeff in Milwaukee on what he'd like to see in the upcoming Apple iWatch. Let's have a listen.
Hey, this is Jeff from Milwaukee. I was trying to think about what Apple could do to make its wearable device different from everything else that we've seen from Android so far. And I was thinking, what if they had a watch, like everybody's predicting, but it's got an iPhone embedded inside of it. But then the ultimate accessory is like a wireless earpiece. And it would almost be like a hearing aid that sits in your ear canal we've all seen. And that, I think, would really be an interesting way to take the technology one step further, one step closer to being integrated into your daily life. Just my 2 cents. Thanks.
All right. Well, that's from Jeff in Milwaukee. Jeff, it sounds good, but it ain't going to happen. I am pretty sure that the iWatch is not going to have an integrated phone in it. It'll probably connect with Bluetooth LE to an iPhone, and it'll interact that way. But we do have some new information about what will appear in the iWatch when it ships next year, be announced next week and ship next year. Can you tell us about that, Elise?
Yes, well, the Wall Street Journal is reporting this morning that 3 of the rumors that we've reported in our extensive coverage of Apple's upcoming iWatch are true. First, the iWatch will support NFC, so it will presumably be usable for buying things in the place of a credit card. Second, the watch will come in 2 sizes, both of which will feature curved glass organic LED screens. And finally, as you can probably expect, it will also have fitness tracking sensors. And this report from the Journal is based on people familiar with the matter.
Johnny Ive, the super designer at Apple, is so confident in the awesomeness of this watch that he said Switzerland is in trouble because they, of course, famous for their Swiss watches. So we'll see, Johnny Ive. I'm really excited to hear about this. And just a reminder, usually we have so much information about what new Apple devices are going to look like, what they're going to feel like. We really don't have any idea about the iWatch. They've really been able to keep this a secret. And so I'm really excited to see what these form factors really are. That's really what's going to matter. It's how big are they? How are they shaped? What do they look like? Do they look cool, or do they look just like all these other Android Wear watches? We will find out next week. And, of course, we're going to be covering that live at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, September 9th. Tech News Today on Tuesday will be at 9 a.m. Pacific, so tune in for that coverage. Well, remember Windows blue screen of death error message? Of course you do. Who could forget it? Well, today we learned from Microsoft developer Raymond Chen's blog that the error message was written by Steve Ballmer personally. At the time Windows needed the error message, Ballmer, who served as the company's second CEO from 2000 until this year, was at the head of the systems division. And when the Windows team showed him a draft version of the error message, he didn't like it. After being challenged by another executive to do better, Ballmer did better. And the message that appeared in the shipping version of Windows on the blue screen of death was almost word for word what Ballmer wrote personally. Also, Samsung yesterday announced that their Samsung Gear S smartwatch will come in a luxury version with Swarovski crystals. And, of course, Apple's hired fashion people to work on and sell its rumored upcoming iWatch. It's clear that tech and fashion are merging in the wearables category. And that's why it almost makes sense that Intel, of all companies, announced yesterday a luxury smart bracelet for women. The chip maker is working with a fashion company called Open Ceremony, and the joint project will produce a device called the MICA, or MICA, which stands for My Intelligent Communication Accessory. It'll convey notifications and also function as a 3G wireless phone. That's right, it'll have a phone built in. It'll come in two styles, and both of them include sapphire screens. The MICA will be available during the holiday season at luxury retailer Barney's and will cost less than, are you sitting down, $1,000. Oh, my goodness.
Yay?
Are you going to buy your fashion from Intel? Elise?
I'm going to pass for now.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Suzanne Carnero in Carlsbad, California, who took this picture through Google Glass and posted it on Google+. Suzanne watches Tech News Today every weekday on her Apple TV, and she posted that her favorite co-host is Elise Hugh.
That is so nice, Suzanne. Thank you. And that's actually a really nice photo, too, from your Google Glass. We can see a little bit of you, too, in the reflection. So thank you.
She also sends a shout out to Jason Howell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to represent.
Back at you.
How do you watch or listen to TNT? Take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook using the hashtag How Do You Watch TNT, and we will find it. That is the Tech News Today. Elise Hugh, you got to catch a cab. We got to get you out of here. Thank you so much for being our co-anchor today.
I love to join you guys on Thursdays and any other day of the week that I exchange for. So thanks so much, guys.
All right. Take care. Thanks again. Well,
See you later.
You can subscribe to Tech News Today on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, RSS, so many other options. Choose your favorite at twit.tv/TNT. Follow us on Twitter. Tech News Today is our Twitter name. And please send us your thoughts and opinions. Send email to tnt@twit.tv or call and leave voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. Don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.